welcome. Thank you so much for coming. For those of you who, can you hear?
Yes.
Louder. All right. I gotta walk over there to do that. Let's see. This might be really loud.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you all for being here. For those of you who maybe just stumbled upon this and have no idea what's going on, this is a book event for Cindy Bigbie's book. She's my friend. This is her book. It's My Link to Mildred, Interrupting the Epidemic of Trauma via Nonviolent Communication. I'm Juliana. Hello. And Cindy's my friend, but she also employs me. And I work for her company, the Bigbie Method. And what we do is we teach people how to find connection even in times of conflict. And we do that through nonviolent communication. So basically, we teach people how to communicate without blame and without judgment. And we give them skills to truly hear one another and understand one another by finding their needs. And there's so much more to NVC, but I'm trying to be succinct. The reason I even bring this up is because her book is so much about this process, and it's about her and her family and the trauma in her family that has been passed down through generations, and she figured out how to interrupt that cycle of trauma through nonviolent communication. So I'm actually going to let my friend Hannah talk a little bit more about the book and about Cindy here in a minute. I just want to give y'all a little rundown of what's going to happen here. So after Hannah introduces Cindy, Cindy's going to share a bit about her experience writing this, and she's going to share a bit from her book. And then she's going to do a little like NVC demonstration.
I knew it.
Yeah, if the feelings and needs sheets didn't clue you in. So for those of you who are NVC curious, please stick around. I think it's going to be pretty fun. And then we'll be sticking around to maybe sell some books, and she'll be signing them, and we'll chat. And yeah, thank you all again so much for being here, and thanks to the Square Mug for hosting us. And I'm going to pass it on to Hannah.
And we have the sign-in sheet.
Oh, thank you. Also, we have a sign-in sheet. If you would like to sign in, it's really helpful for us to just know who's even interested in this kind of stuff. And you can put your email on there if you want, but you also don't have to. It's totally up to you. You don't even have to sign in, but we would like you to. Okay.
Let's get this.
Here you go.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you too. This is what you
Luke, you got it. Okay. Thanks. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, friends. New friends. I'm Hannah, and it's my total treat to help introduce this book. Cindy is my empathy teacher, as she is for many of us here, and the practice is changing my life. And so I couldn't be more pleased and honored to help kind of share some opening framing notes about it. So, part memoir, part how-to, part brain research, part poetic homage, part, in my judgment, an absolutely generous real-life unburying of personal truths that together account for the mystery and learning of a meaningful life's work, all to provide us a spirited community of readers more than a whole vision of peace. My link to Mildred. As Cindy admits in the book intro, and I fully agree, she's been gifted with the unusual ability to string things together. In her own words, while this is a story of her mother's trauma, it's also a story of humanity's trauma and how to break that cycle, which she calls an epidemic, and the root of all violence we see perpetuated in our world. So this book is her mother's legacy and gift to humanity, a metamorphosis of trauma into the potential for a more livable world. Yeah, a big undertaking and a true one. So as an educator myself, an aspiring one at least, a justice advocate, community organizer, a fellow Jewish American daughter and sibling, and sensitive being on the planet, there's so much I relate to about Cindy's personal journey and the stunning years of experience that have led to this book. Through the often funny, sometimes heartbreaking stories, Cindy tells alongside hard science of how we're wired. We learn that we have the capacity to heal inherited trauma at the level of our DNA, and that we can do so in our own lifetimes. Through learning how to get present and how to talk, how to reflect what we're hearing, guess at feelings and needs, make doable, positive, and specific requests of one another, and in doing so, invite ease and clarity and freedom and emotional safety into our relationships, no matter how not the same we might seem. And all of this in the kitchen, in the bedroom, at the office, in our neighborhoods, and community projects. It turns out that empathy isn't feeling what the other person is feeling. That blew my mind. Like that absorbing of family obligation or well-intentioned sense of responsibility that only then allows us to carry some burden of embittered codependency or failure to ever really know what it's like. Not that I'm projecting, but maybe you relate to that one. No, refreshingly, we have a book that guides us through the research and practical application of a wholly other retraining. Empathy is connection, like Juliana said. And me and you, we get to be different, like totally, completely different. And our attitudes, impressions, choices, and even our triggers deserve the chance to be different and seen and heard. Solutions come second, and as strategies we find together to meet our separate and often unrelated needs, such that our ability to get it doesn't have anything to do with how sexy, how smart, how clever, or how caring we are, just how willing. And this will to peace that Cindy teaches us all, the NVC practice opens up for us, couldn't come at a better time. Current events in Florida appear to force us not only to take sides, but cement our positions. The problem is that our feet get stuck in unmoving blocks of opinion and point of view, fixed buckets of right and wrong, us versus them, that seem only to empower an increasingly dangerous disconnection. A sense of unbridgeable doom, not to mention overwhelming fatigue, even among those on the same side. What the Bigbie Method's approach to empathy training proposes is thankfully not, I just won't read the news anymore, I guess, or we agree not to talk about politics strategy of avoidance and deflection at home or at work. Instead, we have a model for actual conversation, what my friend recently called the martial arts of communication, leaning into communication as a whole-bodied, fully present, active, skilled practice. Indeed, there's an aerobics to the piece Bigbie proposes, and it's not the fight or flight our lizard brains rely on to protect and defend us. We have here the possibility for something much more connective, what another hero of mine, Tara Brock, describes as attend and befriend, which requires that we make contact with the feelings in order to heal them. And as prison abolitionist Mariam Kaba reminds, not to do it alone. I just looked over at my empathy gym partner over there. We're meeting for the first time in person. Yes, and my other teacher over here. So as opposed to strategies that might perpetuate social harms and historical traumas through academic censorship, banning of books, cutting DEI programs, turning in medical records of our gender-affirming care, denying tenure for African-American professors, decertifying unions, undoing renter protections, or even the impulse to throw our hands up in desperation. This is instead a text that teaches the two-sidedness of exchange, the practical answer to what can be done. For this possibility, so many readers will feel grateful and inspired, I have no doubt. Fascinated even, and undoubtedly more alive as we recommit to our work where it counts the most. As Cindy writes, this book was written to highlight the magic of NVC and its potential to stop the dominoes from falling. So let's read it and learn its tricks, and instead of the dominoes, let it be our guards that fall as we move together towards more stability, interdependence, mutuality, and a chart full of universal needs. So let's take out our feelings and needs chart. We'll turn it over to Cindy Bigbie, and we can learn to walk all over again. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Those are very hard words to follow, honestly. I'm going to self-connect. Those of you that know me and my work, that's usually how I start everything, is with something called self-connection process. So I invite everybody to do this with me. And it's kind of hard because you guys are here and you guys are here, and I want everyone to have an experience of inclusion. So just know I'm going to do my best around that. I invite everyone to close your eyes, and if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, you could just look down at the ground, okay? And just take a few seconds here, if possible. Take a breath and be with your breath. Usually when we close our eyes, there's lots of thinking that's going on. It's real hard to just get present with ourselves. So I invite you for a second to get fully present with yourself this morning, noticing your internal sensations and fully allowing for whatever is there. And then in NVC, we usually use this space to help us figure out what are we feeling, and then even beyond the feelings, what needs do the feelings point towards that we're either having met in the moment or not having met, because that's the key to all of this, which we will get into. So when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes. I'll check in. Usually if I'm in a group, we would let everyone check in, but if we did that here this morning, we would not get through the content. So when I close my eyes, I notice my heart is beating very strongly. I also have some wetness in my eyes because I'm really touched that everyone came out here. I think my needs for hope. I'm also nervous. Whenever I start anything like this, I'm nervous. So I have a need for maybe acceptance and hopefully contribution to all of you. Yeah, and I didn't really prepare either. Usually I do, but I didn't. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to wing it because I know this stuff so well and it's so a part of me. So there's that. Like, I didn't prepare. So that's not really true, but somewhat true. So I do have some notes here, but I was like, I'll use them, but maybe I won't. So I had the name of this book, No Lie, for 25 years. The name of the book is My Link to Mildred. Mildred, this is Mildred. She's my great-grandmother on my mother's side. This is my mother, little girl. And yeah, I had the name of this book 25 years ago when I realized, you know, I can trace my crazy. I can trace my crazy. I know the story of Mildred and how she was basically run out of her country and came to the United States when she was like 11 or 12 years old by herself, not speaking a word of English, you know, and then how that showed up for her in her life and how she passed it to her children, my grandfather, my mother's father, and how he passed it on down to my mom with a lot of rage, and how my mother passed it on down to me in a certain way. Like, I can trace the lineage. And 25 years ago, I realized, wow, that would be a really cool book, My Link to Mildred. I could write that and actually like show people how this all works. But I didn't, but I had it. I knew I would write it one day. My mother died almost a year ago. It was May 5th. And during her death process, she told me to write this book. And so I did. In fact, probably, I think it says it in the book, like 4 or 5 days after her passing, I just started waking up in the morning, early in the morning, just by chance. And I would drag myself into my office and I just started writing. And that's literally how this book came to be. Early in the morning, without me even thinking about it, it just poured out of me. It was, for me, a big way for me to process my mother dying. My mother came here. She was from South Florida with she had a pain in her neck, and we didn't know what it was. I was trying to get her into a doctor here. That was April 1st last year, and she died on May 5th. So it was a little over a month. She ended up dying from stage 3 lung cancer that had spread all over her body. Oh, this is something I want to share that's really interesting. You can pass these around just pass them around. I just ran them off. I was like, it'll be, since I don't have a projector here. So what I'm passing around is, my goal was to publish the book on the 1-year anniversary of my mother's passing. Because I had it written, but there's a lot more to going into writing a book than I even realized. Also, you don't make money off of a book, which I didn't realize. But that wasn't my reason for writing it anyways, honestly. My reason for writing it was, one, to process my mother's passing, but also because I have the dream of getting NVC into the hands of as many people in this world as possible, because I know from firsthand experience and from all the closure that I had with my mom when she died, that this stuff is so powerful and it's what we need right now. At least this is my thinking. But the picture that I'm passing to you is 1 week before I was going to publish the book. I had my mom in my ear. My mom, when she was alive, she used to say, "Call your mother," which would drive me a little crazy when she would say that. And that week before, I kept hearing, "Come see your mother. She's buried at Oakland Cemetery downtown." So I went to go see her, and I was pretty much blown away because we didn't have her headstone yet, but there was, her placard, which you see in the picture, with her name and her birth and death dates. And right next to it was one little flower that hadn't bloomed yet. It had a bud on it. And there was no place in this whole cemetery where were these flowers anywhere. I'm not kidding. One little stalk of a flower getting ready to bud, like 5 days before I'm getting ready to put out this book. Yeah. And I went home and I told my husband, I was like, well, I want to go back. What if it blooms on the day that my book is? Like, this is freaky weird, okay? And I was like, but what if I go back and it's not there? What if somebody weed eats it? And like, how am I supposed to think about that? But I did go back, and as you can see from the picture, it was blooming on the day that I put this book out. So you can take that for whatever it's supposed to mean. To me, it meant a heck of a lot about all of this. All right. So one thing I do want to make mention of is I'm fortunate because I could trace my trauma. It's very helpful when you can trace your trauma, how it shows up in you. But there are so many people in our society that don't have that gift. There's something actually I mentioned in the book called decontextualized trauma, where people don't have a link to their history, right? People don't have a link to their history. And then it's showing up in certain ways in our behaviors, and we're not recognizing it as what it actually is, which is passed down trauma. We see this a lot in our schools with our kids. At Community Connections, which many of you know, I ran the Restorative Justice Community Connections for 8-9 years here. Most of the kids I worked with were kids 13 to 17-year-olds who had involvement in our legal system. And I want to talk a lot about them here today because they're hugely in this book. Hugely in this book. And it was a very eye-opening experience for me. Like, I knew trauma was a big deal, but being with these kids and teaching NVC, which when you teach NVC, you get a window into a soul, like it's a real connection. So to know these youth so deeply and know their stories so deeply, and to understand that people are not marking like what is actually going on for them, and we're just making it worse by a lot of the processes that we have in place right now. So want to give some some awareness around that. The book, just so you know, like Hannah was saying, when I wrote it, it was just a free-flowing thing. I have a lot of personal stuff in the book, and when I was writing it, I was like, who's going to want to read this? It's all about like the shit that's in my head, like and how I think, and just all of my insecurities. Like, here you are, world. Here are all my insecurities. Um, and then the whole last chapter of the book is about my mom's death. And that was another thing. I was like, who's going to want to read about all the details of my mom's last days dying? But for me, it was really important to write it because I had such a strange experience with my mom dying. I did not have, I think, your typical experience of a mother dying in a month's time. It was a beautiful experience. I have had, it's hard for me to even explain, but I have not missed my mom since she passed. I have not felt sad. It's not because my mom and I, like, yes, she had passed down trauma, but the thing I want you guys to get is in the last year or so of her life, we had so much connection because of the NVC work. She started listening to my podcast. I do have a podcast for those of you that don't know that. And my mom, I used to joke that she would be my number one and only listener would be my mom. She'd be listening to my podcast. But she did listen to it. And as a result, I started seeing that her communication with me was changing. Right? I mean, and it was so sweet because one of the things that you'll learn if you come into the NVC circle is that we have all these other ways of communicating rather than just listening and giving empathy. And parents really do that a lot to our kids. We use all these other conversation responses with our kids, of course, advising, right? But my mom started to ask before just launching in, hey, can I give you some advice? It was such a different little thing. And then I was like, oh, yeah, of course you can give me some advice, We had one of our biggest fights February before she passed, and we applied our NVC skills. I had not the pleasure so much, but the gift of having deep, honest conversation with the person who kind of imparted the harm, if that makes sense. Very few of us ever get that gift. And also, I want to say that most of us don't even realize that we have trauma. Because we think, oh, trauma is that, sexual abuse, physical abuse, like the things we think of typically as trauma. And I want you to kind of widen your net here because the research shows that 2/3 of us have had trauma. 2/3 of us. So that's almost everybody here, right? And we know that if you've had trauma, then it changes the way that you move in the world. It changes the way that we're hearing things, how we're reacting to people, even just what most people think of like as benign comments to one another can be a very quick trigger. And what you'll learn if you again come into the circle of NVC is that so much of our language really does have judgment without us even realizing it. And so if you've had trauma and you're trying to keep yourself safe, you don't even know that you've had trauma, and somebody says you're late, you're always late, such a just a kind of a benign, not a big deal comment, boom, fight, freeze, you're pissed. We don't even realize the why of that. So NVC provides us with so many ways of helping us to connect with ourselves, connect with others, to keep it safe, to give us clarity when we're in story, to have awareness when we're in our trauma response, which most of us don't really know. So that's kind of just some background on NVC. The book is written with, the first chapter is about the epidemic of trauma. The second chapter is about my family's trauma and how it was passed down, and that's where you get a great window into my crazy. And then the third chapter is on NVC, what it is, and why the very specific parts of it, I think, are so helpful in helping us to break this cycle of trauma. And then the fourth chapter is about my business, the Bigbie Method, which is my greatest attempt before I leave this earth to scale this process up to as big as it can possibly be. So thank you everybody for being here because you're helping me do that right now just by showing up. And then the last chapter is about my mom's passing and all the healing and the beauty of that experience thanks to having these skills. So that's kind of gives you a little breakdown of what it is. But I'd like to read now. I had a hard time deciding what should I read. I want to read just a couple of the poems. If you get the book, the back of the book, the appendix, to me is the most important part of this whole book because it's all of my poetry that I've written over years. The large majority were poems that I wrote when I was the coordinator of community connections, and I would be in empathy with kids. Which, by the way, it wasn't only a one-way thing. When we would be in empathy with kids, it would go both ways. Like, oh, you have nothing to say today? Can I share with you? Can you hear me in a certain way? So it was leveling the playing field, which in community connections, we used to say like all conflict happens because there's an imbalance of power. So how do we level out power? And NVC also is very, very helpful with that. Anyways, in the back of the book, I have all of my poetry. It was never meant for an audience, weirdly enough, because it was just my way of processing all the secondary trauma that I was experiencing, holding space for people that were experiencing such deep trauma. But I have to say, in all of my years of working at Community Connections, I used to be really pissed off often. And I'm just going to be very honest about this because what the heck. I'm sorry if this is hard for anybody to hear. You can certainly tell me afterwards and I'll do my best to listen, okay? But I used to pray because I think in not just in our community, but all communities, we still have a division. We have a division between North Side, East Side, South Side here. We still have a division between white people and black people, whether people want to speak to that or not. And I used to wish like everyone could be in circle with me because mostly I worked with 13 to 17-year-old young black boys. Not all, but most. And I used to think if most of the people that I know, my friends, would sit in circle with these kids the way I'm sitting in circle, I can't even imagine the amount of support that would pour out because I believe in the goodness of people. And I think it's just about proximity. Like we're not close enough to truly know what is going on. And I used to like, oh, I wish I could bring everyone in circle with me. And then when I was writing this book, I was like, this is my way. I can bring people in circle by sharing these things that I used to just write on my phone when I woke up in the morning for myself. And they're hard. They're hard to hear. And I also want people to know, to me, they're the extreme trauma. But there was not one kid in 8 or 9 years that didn't have a story similar to the ones that I'm going to share here. Not one. So it's pretty big. This is my way of allowing you to sit in circle with those kids. And I'm sorry if it's hard to hear. And I also trust that we have resilience to be able to hold the space. I had a dream the other night that when I got to this point, there was nobody left. And then I couldn't find the darn thing I wanted to read in the middle of it. And then there were a lot of typos when I got to it. And I was like, shit, that's really bad. Okay, so here I am. Let me find the darn thing. I should have taken note of the dream and put a little sticky note. I'm just going to read 2. Okay. This one's called Shaniqua. Shaniqua and Mo and Trey, a family torn apart, had a home passed down from granddad, Shaniqua's daddy. He died, tragedy number 1, but who's counting? Hurricane Hermine blew the roof off, no insurance to rescue. Mold rendered it uninhabitable. Family of 7 homeless. Tragedy number 2, but who's counting? New home, Joe Louis Projects, North Side, for a South Side family. A toxic concoction noted by the middle of the night knocks by neighbors bringing guns, not cake, to welcome them. And Shaniqua's daughter stood her ground. Her trauma response? Fight, then arrested. The boys arrested too. They stood guard as friends broke into local school. And Shaniqua, all what was left, sat in her broken home, surrounded by filth her depression couldn't clean. As she pieced together a plan to keep her project home, the eviction notice came due to the arrest, the fight. No place for South Side on North Side. No ear to hear the reasons. Is this tragedy number 4 or 5? Losing count. The boys, Mo, quiet with a grudge towards mom. Trey, superstar smile, roll with the punches. Bedroom was a living room couch. They loved their mama's mac and cheese, loved their mama's cooking. They shared that with me after she was found dead out of nowhere, wondering if it was natural or done to her. Tragedy 6? Moved in with grandma. Couldn't keep track of the number in that house. Grandma seemed to care, or was it the monthly check that came along with the crew helping to feed her addiction? We dropped off food, got the boys summer jobs, all we could think of to do. Within a year, grandma dead too. Mo became a daddy, fought with his love, now doing time. I see Trey at school, still smiling. No one knows tragedies he's been through. We lost count long ago, shrugged our shoulders out of sorrow and despair, not lack of care. Much easier to turn away than to stare at it all up close and wonder where to start the repair. Ashamed to say, I'm out of here, running back to my safe white world with my first world problems. And Shaniqua rolls over in her grave for the family she couldn't save. Here's one more I'll share. This one I didn't put into the book because I thought it would be too obvious who it was, even though I did change the names. This one is representing some of our white children because they have trauma too, right? Gil, wrapped in the red, white, and blue. Curb stomp. He educated me through his day after delirium of popping 27 pills. We sat in room B, chairs face to face, toes nearly touching. He educated me on things I didn't need to know. Desperation, deep truths never told. Imagine being 5 on an outing with dad and his biker friend, witnessing a curb stomp. Look it up. Google it. Wikipedia. It's a thing. Curb stomp. They took some black dude face down, mouth pried open on the curb, stomped his head in with his boots. He watched. His 5-year-old eyes witnessed. That was Gil's afternoon outing with his daddy. And his daddy loved him so much, proof to this day, the man's cell phone screensaver. He carries a sweet 3-year-old picture of Gil, draped in the red, white, and blue, AK-47 over Gil's shoulder. Put up your hand, Gil. Heil Hitler, Gil. Smile for the camera, Gil. Good boy, Gil. What a sweet picture, Gil. I will carry it forever. So will Gil, in his shaken heart, in his broken soul, as he sits crying, explaining why he's so messy. There was growing up in the crack house, too. Hooray for the red, white, and blue. Makes me want to put a flagpole in my front yard, fly the flag at half-mast for an eternity, or at least until 5-year-old Gil is healed. Amen. Hallelujah. Heil Hitler. I want you to hold that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But that is not just them. They're just mirroring and living back everything that is everywhere, including all of us, for all of us. And I know, like, through all of this, I know the only one thing that I can do is to help more people know NVC. That is the only thing that I know, at least that I can do. You all can figure out what else you can do. Maybe it's to join me in this. But I know for a fact that this process is the antidote to all of that. I know it. So I'm gonna share real quick. I don't even know what time it is. I know sometimes I could be really long-winded. Anybody, what time is it?
Don't worry about it.
10:45. Okay, so we still have some time. Good. I'm going to share just a little bit of NVC process. There's no way I can teach you this in 10 minutes. No way. Even if you take my intro class, I promise you, this is what I tell everybody if you take my intro. Some of you all have taken it. Some of you have taken it for years, okay? You come in, and at the beginning, I'll tell you, I don't care how many degrees you have next to your name. I don't care how much background you have. You will come in, and you will be what I call unconsciously unskilled. You will not even know that there's this thing that's possible that we could all learn to do to truly have more connection with one another. And then after 8 weeks of taking this, my class is an 8-week. It's online, but it's an hour of videos of me, a lot of me explaining stuff. Every week you get an hour, and then you have 75 minutes of a Zoom session live with either me or some of my facilitators, which I have a few facilitators here. Raise your hand, facilitators. Yeah, who have been with me for a long time. So there's a level of integrity in what people are teaching all the way through it. And so you get really about 2 hours, give or take, a week for 8 weeks. After that, I say, now you're actually in a worse place. I'm sorry, because now you are consciously unskilled, which is worse. Really, I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. Because after 8 weeks, you're going to be like, oh my God, there's this amazing thing, and I can't freaking do it. And I'm still doing all the same things in the way that I've always worked in the world, and I can't do it. So that's why we developed through the Bigbie method this thing called the empathy gym. Swear to God, it's not for me to make money. I swear to God, it's for people to start to learn and have a place where you can actually apply these skills and get better and better and better at these skills, because the world is crazy, folks, right? So anyways, all of that to say, I'm going to give you a little teeny piece of NVC, but just know this is not it. This is just like to wet your whistle a little bit, okay? So I think we had in this part of the program, if anybody wanted to share just quickly, so we have time, but I think we're good on time. I do have many people that are here that have gone through the NVC process, and I think we wanted to give some space if anybody just wanted to say how NVC has impacted your life before I go into giving you a little taste. Anybody wants to share, this is a space for that. It would be really nice to hear from at least, 2 or 3 people. I'd like to keep it kind of at that, 2 or 3 people. Anybody want to share out?
I'm gonna give a share.
You're gonna have to talk louder.
I can talk loud. I don't want to get up in front of my mic.
Can you all hear her? No, they can't hear her.
Okay. All right, I'm getting up. All right. Hey, y'all. There you go. Hi. I don't like microphones. I love them. Well,
Of course you would.
it's probably going to be instantly hard for me to share because I'm standing here like this, but I'm going to give it a whirl. How I communicate myself has almost destroyed me. I think it keeps me in my house, keeps me away from people, because the voice in my head is violent. Because I learned violence growing up, listening to all the words that were given to me. I was afraid to let myself out into the world because I knew that what I was saying was not what I meant. It was mostly toxic. It was mostly trying to get needs met, but more manipulatively than from authenticity. I was too vulnerable. But I wanted so much to connect with others, but I feel so awkward because I feel I grew up outside of culture that I relate to now. And when I started taking NVC, the first thing that happened as I practiced with the people I practiced with was not that my communication got better with others. It still kind of sucks, actually, but I'm working on it, and that's a judgment. And I've learned that. That's part of it. But what happened to me was inside my head, how I speak to myself, how I relate to myself is beginning to lose judgment. And I'm beginning to be easy with myself and at home with my own being, at home with my own mind. And it took me out of a level of hell that less and less I feel in my day-to-day life. My alone has gotten a lot more heavenly. I used to be afraid even to be alone. I couldn't be with others, but I also was afraid to be alone because of all of those voices. And now I meet myself and know when I'm in judgment. And I can give myself self-empathy and understand what the needs are instead of castigating myself and fearing others. I could talk a lot more about it, but I think that's kind of a way others might understand how NVC is so beautiful, not only how we communicate to each other, but first and foremost, at least for me, how we communicate with our own selves.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you. Anybody else? One other person? Go ahead, Logan. Come on, Logan.
I love
Okay. Hey y'all. Lots of you know me. I'm Logan. I've been around for about a decade. I'm one of Cindy's facilitators. I'm also a local mental health therapist. Shameless plug, if anybody wants therapy. So I started learning nonviolent communication completely on accident. I was doing my internship for my bachelor's degree at the Palmer Monroe Teen Center, and I sat down with my supervisor, and she's like, there's this class Tuesdays and Thursdays. I was like, that fits the bill. I'm available. Shove me in there. And I showed up, and then I met this lady who was entirely too happy and entirely too sensitive. Who can exist in this world like that? And so I had a lot of judgments, and I think about 10 minutes into the first circle with the teens, I just realized that what I was seeing was authenticity and a ton of bravery. And that was Cindy Bigbie. So I went through that first round with teens, and I worked with her a little bit more, and then I graduated with my bachelor's degree with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and a full-time job and a life to live. And I thought, that was cool. Onward. And I walked away. But I was consciously unskilled. I had the gift then of knowing keenly and painfully what I did not know. But it took about 2 years. And my daughter, who was then 4, started displaying the symptoms of autism. And I became really aware that I was not communicating well with my child. There were days I didn't even like her. And I was pretty sure she didn't like me either. And I remember one day I was with her, and she was nonverbal that day. She was very physically expressive, which usually ended up with a lot of bruises on mom. And at one point I grabbed her by her shoulders and I sat her in front of me. I was like, I just need to know what you need. And I went, oh, I know how to guess needs. I don't even need people to tell me what their needs are. I can guess. And I called Cindy. I was like, I need to come back. I need more. And so I came back into Circle and volunteered some more. And I got my master's degree, and I did another internship and became a mental health therapist. And I use nonviolent communication every single day of my life, even when I'm just really conscious that I'm not using the skills, because that's part of the process too. But I can tell you that sort of like the most powerful thing I learned was that you don't have to have rage and cruelty to protect yourself from harm. That you can be gentle and brave. And you cannot know shit, but you can guess. And this is just the most beautifully forgiving way to show up in the world, exactly as you are, in full acceptance. And I just love all of you, and I'm so glad everybody's here.
Oh my. Okay. Thank you, Logan, so much. Yeah, I appreciate you give some of the perspective of Palmer Monroe and community connections, and yeah. All right, let me teach you a little bit, like at least one of the main concepts, one main takeaway of NVC right here. Okay. So what I'm going to ask people to do is I'm going to do my best, and I just have this little chart to write on, so we'll just go with it. I want you to tell me, what is it that you think or even say out loud when someone does something that you do not enjoy? Like, or, you get pissed off about something. What's the first thing that goes through your head or comes out of your mouth? And if you're shy, just so you know, I used to do this with the kids at Community Connections. They love this activity because they got to put things up on the board that they would usually never get to put up on a board. You see where I'm going with this? Someone cuts you off in traffic. What is the first thing that comes out of?
Idiot.
Okay, thank you. Here we go. I'm going to capture this.
Or an effing idiot. Right.
Are you kidding me?
Right.
What an idiot.
Are you mean or
Effing
stupid?
idiot. Are you? Wait, hold a sec. I didn't hear that one. Are you kidding me? Welcome to where?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Are you mean or stupid?
Yeah. Thank you, asshole. Asshole. What else? Okay, no one uses the F word because fuck you. Right, thank you. That's the first. That's usually, we love our F word, okay? WTF, right, okay. What else? Anybody else? Really? Really? Okay. So, yeah, we got that one. I'll put that times 2. Okay. What's that, jerk? Jerk. Isn't it funny? This is the first thing. This is the first, our knee-jerk response. Even if we don't say it, it goes through our heads, right? This is how we are. We're going to come back to this in a second, okay? Let's remember this little. Now, I want you to think about, if you had your most perfect world, perfect world, what would be in your most perfect world? Now, I am not talking about concrete material items. I'm talking about one word, abstract concepts of things that you would have in your most perfect world. Scream them out and go. So hold on. I got kindness, honesty,
Retirement.
peace. Okay, well, hold on. Retirement, I'm going to come back to. Okay, retirement, I'm going to circle. Patience.
Fun.
Woo, someone said fun. Usually I have to ask people for that one. Thank you. Fun. Happiness. Wait, happiness. Forgiveness. And then
Dancing.
family. Okay, dancing, I'm going to circle. Delight. Community. Peace, I think we have. Awe. Ease. Oh yeah, ease. What else? What is it? Grace. Comfort.
Time.
Comfort, time. Joy. Rest. Understanding. Safety. Any other ones? This is a pretty good list already, right? Okay. Intimacy. How about connection? Thanks. Confidence, okay?
How about lack of judgment?
Yeah, so that would be like acceptance. Yeah, acceptance for sure. Any other ones before I move on? Safety. Safety's up here. Okay. All right. Love. Oh, yeah. Let's not forget that one. Curiosity. Someone said food. Boom. Curiosity. Okay, so what we have right here. What we have right here are what are considered our universal human needs. I stole this activity from another NVC trainer years ago who said that they would go all over the world. And you can ask anybody, anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter what your background is, what your religion is, what your race is. You ask people anywhere in the world, what is it that you want in your most perfect world? We always generate the exact same list every time. These are our universal human needs. They are what actually connect us. They're what connect us as human beings, right? So there's a few key takeaways here, though. A few key takeaways. One is, if this is what we want, we're all clear this is what we want. But when we get upset or someone says what something that we don't like, we do all those other things on the other list. And by doing the things on the other list, does it get us to the things on this list? You see how that's a little messed up, folks? Right? Like we're missing the mark completely. We've been trained, and it makes sense, really, when you think about our brain and the way our brain has grown over time. Like it used to just have, the very basic processes of fight, flight, freeze. But now it's evolved. We have all this other part of our brain, but it's the slower part, it's the weaker part, right? But we have the ability now to get to respond in a different way. So it requires retraining. That's what NVC actually allows us to do. So here's two key takeaways. This is what I can leave you with here. Marshall Rosenberg, who was the guy that developed NVC, I need to do a shout out to him, right? He was up for the Nobel Peace Prize several times for this work, because this is not my work, this is his work. And he did die several years ago, which weirdly enough, I got my certification in NVC the week that he passed. So you can take that as you want. I know how I take it, right? Same as the flower at the gravesite. And anyways, his number one takeaway is, here you go, it's so basic. All conflict is a tragic expression of an unmet need. All conflict. If you think of any conflict that you have in your life right now, it always comes back to there's a need going on. But we have never been taught to share or communicate at a need level. Nobody ever told me that. Usually when, something's going on, we're caught up in our minds. By the way, why that self-connection thing that we did at the very beginning of this, where we get quiet, we notice what's going on. Your feelings are just your body's system to tell you need being met, need not being met. That's all that's going on there. If you feel crappy, it's because you are not having need met in that moment. I have need sheets all over here. Grab your need sheet and start to think about what need is not being met for me right now. That's all that's going on here, folks. If you are experiencing good things inside, things that you enjoy, it's because you have needs that are being met. That's also nice to get trained up in. Oh, what needs are being met for me right now? So number one, learning that for yourself. We have a whole nother layer of conversation about, oh, I'm this, I'm shitty, I'm like, all the judgment stuff, rather than all that's happening, folks, all ever is need met, need not being met. And that's all you need to know for yourself. And that's all you need to know to communicate to another human being who, by the way, shares the exact same needs as you. So when you can share your needs, they get it, because it's what we have in common with one another. One little takeaway. So there are those need sheets everywhere. When you leave here today, that's the one thing I can give you. When you're pissed off about something, go grab your need sheet and start to think to yourself, okay, this is about a need. What need is it? So that's the first step. My brother, who's like, make it simple, break it down, NVC for dummies. So number one takeaway is, when you're pissed, go grab your need sheet and start to think about what need is going on for me. There might be several, but usually there's like one that's like ding, ding, ding. It's that one right there. Okay. Here's the other. And by the way, when I was learning NVC, I had those sheets everywhere. I had one by my bedside, at my desk, which I still have, in my purse, which I still have, and in my car, which I still have.
Refrigerator?
Not on my refrigerator, but that's a really good place, right? So, yeah, in your office, everywhere. If you were, I'm now working in schools and in businesses, they're laminating them and putting them everywhere. By the way, for people that are creatives, I'm waiting for someone to start making jewelry that has needs on them. Because, yeah, we want to be able to have easy access. My brother was like, can you get some tattoos where people can put them on? No, for real. Because in the beginning, that list is very key. You'll learn if you start to learn NVC. We get very confused about what's a need, what's a feeling. One big takeaway with NVC too is we are very confused about what is a thought and what is a feeling, and that gets us in trouble. Side thing, I feel manipulated. That is not a feeling. That's something you'll learn. That's not a feeling. It's a thought. You think someone's manipulated. That's a judgment. So if you say that to someone, it's going to piss them off, and boom, you're like, why? I'm just sharing my feelings. No, you're not. You're not sharing your feelings. You're sharing a judgment, and that person probably has had trauma, and so therefore they're going to be pissed and fight, flight, freeze. That's a whole nother lesson to be had about this. Okay. One other last little takeaway. So if all conflict is a tragic expression of an unmet need, there's this thing like I circled retirement and dancing up here, if you noticed, because those are not needs. Believe it or not everybody in the world needs retirement. This is very honest in my family because my husband just retired in February, and I don't want to retire. It's not a need for me, all right? But for some people, it's in NVC that's considered a strategy. We get very confused between strategies and needs. Needs are what everybody in the world wants. Strategies are our individualized way of getting our needs met. We get very confused between the two things, and we usually fight at a strategy level. When we're fighting, it's because we got strategies involved here, and we're not clear even on what the needs are. But strategies are very helpful, like retirement. There are certain needs that are met for some people with retirement. What needs are met, right? What ease, comfort, fun, rest, wherever that is. It's down here, joy, rest, right? Family, okay? Same thing with dancing. Not everybody in the world wants dancing. That's hard for me to believe. Yes, okay? Not if some people really hate dancing. And so, but dancing for certain people meets certain needs, right? Joy, fun, right? Exercises, all kinds of things. Yeah, just so you see. So what we start to learn in NVC is to separate out our strategies from our needs. And when we're communicating with ourselves and with others, we start to try to have a lot of clarity and communicate around the need process or words. That's my quick, top level. This is a lifetime journey, folks. It is not a half hour, learn a little bit about NVC. But that, to me, is probably a very big nugget for most people. For many people, it's like, really? All conflict is about a need? Yes. And when you can start to get clear on that and communicate only in that way, it's a game changer. So I think that's all I have to say. If anybody has any questions, I'm open to them. And I think, Jeremiah, you were going to close this out. Yes? Sure. Come on with your little baby. Anybody have any questions or anything?
There's a lot of presumption of good intent here. Thank you, Logan, for teaching me that. Could you speak to ways to, I think this is probably a more complicated question answer here, but for a person who really just doesn't want to engage, is there any magic? Is there any way to strategy to get the need met to connect with someone who's really avoiding?
So NVC comes down to presence, always. And in being able to show up and be present with someone, just how they are in that space, not always, you can't guarantee that there will then be a shift over there. But are you engaging for connection or are you engaging for change? Right? That's the difference. And that's not always an easy thing. I mean, even for me, after all these years, there's often times when I'm wanting the change. So it always comes back to self and self-worth, self-work. And there are things and processes that you do in the NVC world to help yourself free up internally so you have more space and more ability to stay fully present and get your needs met in other ways. That's also what's really, we get bogged down. I got to have it this way with this person. That's a strategy. When we can start to there are many ways I can get this need met. Can I open it up and let go of this as a strategy? Now all of a sudden there's a lot more spaciousness and ability to let that person show up fully how they are. And when you can, oftentimes, not always, there is a shift. But you can't go into it with, I want this person to change, because now you're no longer present, right? Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I think there probably is, yeah. And what is the difference between a need and a want? Yeah. Needs are universal. That's basically how you get back to it. Everybody in the world wants this. Not everybody in the world wants so-and-so to do this. Usually if you want so-and-so to do this, that's a want. That's not a need. Right? So that's how you separate out the two things. Anybody, anything else? Where's Maya?
Wait, can we do this?
I think this will be really quick. Okay, again, thank you everyone for being here. Cindy and I are going to be at this table, and she'll be signing books, and I will be selling them if you want any. And then my husband is going to just give us a little word here, and we're here. We'll be hanging out to chat, answer more questions, and also just connect with everyone. It's really cool that this whole community showed up for this, and I know that I'm super grateful to be a part of this community. And for those of you who I have not connected with yet, I would love to connect with you. Thanks again for being here. Okay, here's Jeremiah. Oh, also, there are bookmarks everywhere, and those are not for sale. They are for free. They're for you. Take them.
And the need sheets, too. And we have more.
And the QR code on the back is to the book.
Hi, good morning. I've been asked to describe how Cindy has impacted our community and then give a call to action. I'm just going to check in for a second. I feel very calm and welcomed and comfortable and grateful. I also feel a little uncomfortable because it is hard to follow this act. And I'm thinking that many of you actually already know the impact that Cindy has already had in this community. So I don't know if there's really much I need to say. There is the one call to action I think I can give is that when I first met Cindy, I thought I knew this work because I read the book in which a lot of this work is based upon. And as soon as I started volunteering for Community Connections, I realized, oh, I don't know this process. I thought I did, but I don't know it. And this process is really experiential. And it's important to actually get in there and start building connections and practicing. And the best way to do that is to take Cindy's intro course. You can go to thebigbiemethod.com, take the course. I think it's one of the greatest gifts that I've given to myself, and I think it would be for you as well. I will also say that her work has inspired many of us to form a nonprofit to help spread nonviolent communication and restorative justice. So if you have ideas or you would like to know how we are making an impact in the community, thanks basically to her curriculum, come talk to me. Otherwise, I don't want to take up too much more of your time and let you come chat with Cindy and sign books and things like that. Thank you for your attention. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, thank you. So our nonprofit is connectionfirst.org. Or that's the website for it, at least.
This is kind of a question for you, Cindy, just to make sure, but when we buy your book online, aren't we promoting it and continuing it out so to let people know about that?
Yeah, thanks for that, because this is all new to me, right? So apparently, I mean, the way that you get traction, because I'm on Amazon. I know some folks don't enjoy buying through Amazon, but that's how it is these days to get information out to the world. So you can buy it on Amazon. Yeah, it's a numbers thing. So the more people that buy it, the higher my ratings go, the more visibility I get, the more people that rate it. That's also, if you've read the book, please go on Amazon and write something about it, because that helps tremendously to have 5-star ratings and commentary about the book. So yeah, I have these here for people that want to buy them or really don't want to support Amazon, or you want me to sign it. So that's fine. Again, you make nothing off of a book. This is really just about trying to scale the work. So
Probably cost you.
there is an ebook. The ebook's a lot less expensive. I actually make more money off the ebook than I think I make like $2 off of any book. That's really what it comes down to. It's like nothing. So, yep. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. I don't know if I should shut that off or what.
You could leave on the hot mic.
Where's Juliana? Because I'm going to need her help, I think.
She's
here.
right over there.
Oof, in the sun.
We can switch back now.
Good.